This is Gene Krebs.
Hi there. Oh. Whoop. Whoosh.
And we're high on Ohio. I'm joined today by Steve Dackin, who is the superintendent of Reynoldsburg City Schools here in Franklin County, Central Ohio, who has some very interesting insights, shall we say. You've been testifying for the General Assembly. You've been very prominent in some of your views. How did you get to where you are on your educational philosophy, and how did you come to being here at Reynoldsburg?
It's really been kind of a long journey, a 35-year journey. Started out as a teacher and did that for a few years, and then became an assistant high school principal, an athletic director, a high school principal. I was a high school principal for 14 years. Started out in the Lima area and came to Reynoldsburg in 1995 as the high school principal, and then left as high school principal, went to the Ohio Department of Education for 3 years, and found my way to Westerville City Schools in a central office administrative position overseeing their 3 high schools and their 4 middle schools, and then came back to Reynoldsburg as part of a succession plan. The previous superintendent, Richard Ross, had been here for 20 years, and he announced to the board that he was going to retire in a couple of years, and so the board took that opportunity to plan for his retirement and his replacement. So I got a chance to work with Dick again in that capacity.
You have a very unusual, interesting perspective on education. I mean, you kind of defined No Child Left Behind before there was No Child Left Behind. You sincerely believe that every child can succeed, which then calls into question of how do you define success.
Absolutely.
But can you discuss that a little bit with us here?
Well, I really do believe, and I think the great equalizer is great teachers and principals with children, and who find ways to interact with that child and find their talent. I think every child has a unique talent of some sort, and I think that we have a responsibility to ensure that they have the knowledge and skills in order to move forward and explore that talent. I do think that our quest is to try to find ways that we can individualize opportunities for each kid based on their passions, their interests, and their talents. And it's up to the parent and the child to help us think that through. I resent the fact that that's not a role for government to play. It's a role for families and children to play. But we have an important role in helping to shape that.
You have a broad-reaching attitude. You have your beautiful facility, and you also have here things like we are filming this in your wonderful theater department. Now, everybody else in Ohio is going to say, when I say they're going to think when I say Reynoldsburg, they're going to think of this Stepford Village community, you know, that's on an outer ring suburb, okay, of Columbus, where everybody is well-to-do and probably white and well-to-do. But yet you have a highly mixed population you're achieving good success with. All right. You're not supposed to look the way this district looks, and you're having greater success than you're supposed to have. What's going on here?
Well, I think it starts with the fact that we don't accept excuses. We're a results-oriented district.
You know, I had a good friend who made vice president at Huffy Corp at age 31, and I asked him once how, and he says, because never take excuses as the answer, because once you start accepting excuses as the answer, that's all you're going to get from people is excuses.
Yeah, it is about high expectations, and regardless of who you are and where you come from. And we have changed dramatically in Reynoldsburg. I've been associated with the community off and on for about 18 years now. But I can tell you right now we're a majority district.
Really?
We have 55% of our kids who are eligible for free and reduced lunch. And those numbers have changed dramatically in the last 5 years. 5 years ago, 28% of our kids were eligible for free and reduced lunch. And 5 years ago, we had about 38% of our kids were minority. So we're the fastest demographically, socioeconomically changing first-ring suburb in Franklin County. And so we're much poorer as a community than we were 5, 6, 7 years ago. And we have a population that's changed dramatically.
All right, that is going to be a surprise to people because, when I think of Reynoldsburg, I think of it's a resolutely, Republican, but this explains what you just talked to me. It explains how I've seen some of the political demographics on this district change. The index on it's been shifting. And you're kind of bringing in then, recently there's been a book published, G is for Genes, by Asbury and Plowman, that says that the whole nature versus nurture discussion, they're coming down more strongly on the basis of genetics. Right. But what you're saying is that just because the child may come from a family that the parents are not educated up to, what we think of what we need to have here in America, you're not all discouraged by that. You're going to go ahead and plow ahead.
We are going to plow ahead. That's our ethical and moral responsibility to ensure those children have an opportunity to learn. It goes back to my comment about high expectations. We do believe that each child is unique. They have certain talents and dispositions. But when it comes to basic numeracy and literacy, there's absolutely no reason why children can't attain those kind of results.
Then let me ask you a very ugly question. Are you getting it more right than your colleagues? Are they getting it more wrong? And I get the sense from you you're not willing to accept the status quo. You're willing to take, you're an educational entrepreneur, okay? Which I will also tell you, I'm a recovering school board member too, in addition to recovering from many things. But by and large, people often gravitate into teaching because they don't want to get into entrepreneurship. Yet you're bringing this entrepreneurial attitude here. How is this being received by your other 613 school superintendents around the state?
Well, I don't know that I can take a temperature of the 613 school districts. I can tell you that we've had over 1,000 visitors in the last 2 years who've come to Reynoldsburg for interesting reasons, some of which are they look at our facilities, but more importantly, they look at the programs that we're doing here. We have a K through 12 STEM initiative where we have 2,300 kids who are enrolled in a STEM initiative K through 12.
Talk to us a little bit about that.
Well, it's science, technology, and engineering and math, and we're a choice district. I always kind of refer to us as kind of like a hybrid portfolio district. In other words, we have schools of choice. Any student in Reynoldsburg can attend any one of our schools, and we provide transportation for them to do so. And that's what I mean by portfolio. We have an array of schools. We have a blended learning middle school. We have a STEM middle school. We're planning for an international baccalaureate third middle school. Okay. Our high schools are divided up into interest-based academies where we have 4 different ways that we organize kids together to learn. Okay. We have an E-STEM academy here on this campus. We have an Arts Communication Design Academy on this campus. On our Livingston Avenue campus, we have a Health and Human Services Academy, which is a STEM academy as well. And then we have our first early college academy with our Business Education, Law, and Leadership Academy. And the theory behind that is that I believe in parent choice. I believe that students and families, every child should be able to go to a great school in this country. We're the most generous country in the world when it comes to how much money we're willing to spend to educate our young people.
Okay, but if you look at our rankings on an international basis with the OECD, which basically stands for rich countries, we are consistently mediocre. I hear the same thing. It reminds me so much of the argument about healthcare. People say, you hear it all the time, oh, we're number 1 in healthcare. Well, no, we're number 1 in cost on healthcare. We're mediocre when it comes to the outcomes.
That's right.
If you compare us by country, Finland is beating us. And they have no natural advantage. They have snow. Right. Okay, that's their natural advantage.
Could be the natural advantage.
If snow was a valuable commodity, they would be the Saudi Arabia of snow. That's right. All right. Yet they're beating us all hollow. Why then? And what light do you see here from Reynoldsburg?
Well, we're probably the opposite example. We're the second lowest per pupil expenditure school district in Franklin County. We've cut our expenses. we've cut a little over $24 million in anticipated growth and expenditures over 5 years.
Okay.
I have 200 fewer employees in the district today than I had 5 years ago, yet we have more kids.
All right, so going back to STEM, and it's because, as I've said many times, Ohio has enough lawyers. We do not need more lawyers. Mm-hmm. We need more.
I appreciate you telling that since my daughter's in law school right now.
Yeah, I understand. Yeah, well, okay. What
Nix
we need,
that one.
well, I'll blame guidance counselors for that then. What we need is more engineers, mathematicians, physicists, chemists, biologists, and my personal bias is that I trained in animal behavior. Mm-hmm. Served me very well in politics. Thank you for laughing. Don't encourage me. Don't encourage me. But so I look at this and I go, all right, so you're doing all this stuff with STEM, yet at the same time you recognize that if you're just STEM, if you're just an engineer, but you've never taken theater, you don't know how to appear in front of a public and do a PowerPoint to a certain degree. Right. So you've invested in this beautiful facility here. So I really have to take my hats off to you. You're doing a lot of the right things, but going back to how do we beat Finland?
Well, I still think it comes down to the quality of what we do, the interaction between boys and girls and teachers and quality principals. Okay. And I think we have to be entrepreneurial when we think about, should education only be should it be a monopoly? And I just never believed that.
You're open enrollment.
We're open enrollment. And because it goes back to the basic philosophy that all kids should deserve and have the right to have a great school. Okay. And so I also believe in efficacy. I think when parents and kids have a sense of control and choice over their learning, mm-hmm. You're going to produce more powerful results. And so parents can choose a school to go to, or a child can attend a school that they really want to be in. Okay. You just up the ante on their ownership with that. And if you ensure that you have great teachers and principals, good things can happen.
You're cutting costs. Mm-hmm. I mean, normally when I talk to a superintendent, as you're known inside the circle, the supers, okay, it's like we need more money. We need more money and we want less mandates. Yet you've had your budget cut here. Your facility seems to be in beautiful condition. I'm not seeing any picket lines as we came in. Your test scores seem to be good. You seem to be succeeding. Why are you succeeding? And what can other superintendents, do, you think, to help their school districts do better? And you do not have a good demographic base here. This is not like it's Shaker Heights or Indian Hill or Oakwood or New Albany. You have a large low income population here in Reynoldsburg. I think that's an assumption people need to get over. But have you had success here?
Well, I think you have to look outside the borders of your school district, outside the walls of the school, and invite other partners to come in. We've crafted many partnerships. We have a wonderful relationship with Columbus State Community College, where our kids have access to an early college program, which is going to reduce remediation. It's going to increase college access for students who are traditionally underserved and underrepresented in college. We have dual enrollment courses available. Mount Carmel has a presence on our Livingston Avenue campus, and our kids they opened up their entire organization to our kids for internships. We have Ballet Met out here. I have great space, as you can see, and so space has become my new currency. So I trade space for services. Now, Ballet Met provides us with 2 instructors during the day to teach Pilates and yoga. Kids get phys ed credit for Pilates and yoga. Those classes are always filled. Kids like them. It doesn't cost me any operational. I trade rent cost for Columbus State Community College. In return, they give me their professors that in terms of costs, reduce my operational costs. This is all about human capital.
This is very impressive.
We had to do it. I mean, it was one of those things where I took a step back and said, when we went through our cuts 5 years ago, I said, I'm never going to cut the district like we did it again. We're taking opportunities away from kids, and that's wrong.
Okay, now let me ask you this question. The Journal simply has a proposal in there to ban human cloning, which hasn't occurred yet, but so why shouldn't we clone you and put you in 613 other school districts then?
That may be very dangerous for the state of Ohio for that to happen. Chaos would ensue. But I always believe in cognitive dissonance anyway. I think every organization has to be prompted. I think what happens in many school districts is they get comfortable. And so part of my job is to prod and pry and create a little dissonance. So there's not that comfort level. So we're always seeking solutions. And that's one of the things I think that separates us a little bit from maybe some others is that we do, until we get it right for every kid, we don't have it right. And so we're always going to continue to search for that holy grail, whatever that holy grail is.
So that's an interesting quote you just said. Can you say that again? Until we get it right.
Right. Well, until we reach every kid, we don't get it right, we're going to continue to find a way to get it right. And it's as simple as that. It's that unrelenting quest to find the holy grail for every kid.
Okay.
And you said No Child Left Behind. The great thing about No Child Left Behind for me was the phrase No Child Left Behind.
Yeah.
Because up until then, we massed performance with aggregated test results and so forth. We didn't break it down to the individual child, and so groups of kids literally got left behind because they didn't matter in the accountability system.
All right. We asked this question of everybody coming through here and sitting here in these chairs. Even though we're here in this beautiful facility, what keeps you up at night?
Again, kids not meeting or exceeding performance standards and safety. Those are the two things that keep me up at night, making sure that we have schools where kids feel safe, where staff feel safe, and where we have kids who are making achievement gains in addition to growth gains.
Yeah, and we also have a segment we call myth busting, which is tell us something that everybody thinks is true, but is not true. And I think you've already done that by saying this is not a white outer ring suburb Stepford wife type community at Reynoldsburg. Right. It is mixed, has poor, low income, minorities, and becoming more of a microcosm of America then.
Absolutely. And we're more of an urban suburban district in that sense. And so we have the typical issues that many urban school districts have.
So as you go through and, you've spent time on the inside. You've been a teacher. You spent time on the outside, Department of Education. You're now back in the trenches. What do you think is that has influenced you as in the way of books, literature, white papers? In other words, so let's say out here right now there's some social studies teacher in Fostoria who's watching this, and they're going, I want to be him someday. All right? How does he or she, what book would you recommend that they read to go, all right, this, or what paper or seminar or conference or what would, something that they could do?
I think I always tell there's several books that have profoundly influenced my thinking around leadership, and because I do think in the end this is about leadership, and setting the conditions in an organization for success. And so a couple of recent books, Cage Busting Leadership. Rick Hess came out with a book a couple years ago now that really profoundly influenced me in terms of the thought process around I can versus I can't culture. Okay. And there's so much of I can't culture in education where we feel constrained by federal regulations or state regulations or the mandate piece that you mentioned earlier, and really upon closer inspection you really have more latitude than you think you have. Okay. It's just that I think sometimes people use it as a little bit of an alibi.
A crutch.
A little bit of a crutch. So that's one. Good to Great by Jim Collins was another book that influenced me in terms of talent and the management of talent.
All right, then you brought up Good to Great. One of the key things out of that book is where corporations so often fail is in the handoff. Okay? I think that may have come out in the sequel, Good to Great Part 2, or Good to Mediocre, or Mediocre to Adequate, or whatever it was. How all right, at some point in time, you will retire and leave Reynoldsburg City Schools.
Yes.
Okay. You probably already easily have your 30 years in under STR.
My 35, right.
Why the heck are you here? And what advice will you give to your board as for your replacement?
Well, I always say you got to look for two things at the top of your list of attributes in leadership. One is courage,
Okay.
and the other one is EQ. The ability to do kind of an environmental scan, your ability to have and forge and understand people and know basic human theory of motivation.
Sort of a small p political sense.
Well, yeah, no, well, actually, I think it's a big P political sense, because you've got to understand that you're in a political environment.
Yeah.
And so politics, EQ, and courage, it's the interaction of those three that help formulate, I think, good leadership. One of the things that in Jim's book that I took away right away was good is the enemy of great.
Yes.
You know, so many times when you're doing well, however that's defined, goes back to my cognitive dissonance issue, is then you kind of get comfortable. Yeah. And you got to keep prodding and say it's never good enough.
Yeah.
You know.
Youngstown, 1958, was a great year for it. I mean, they were top of the world. The factories were all going. The mills were all going. And the seeds of their destruction were being sown in 1958.
Absolutely.
And if you'd gone in there and met with the Chamber of Commerce and the people who ran, Youngstown at that point in time, they would have said, everything's great. We don't need to change a thing. Everything's perfect. And
that's right.
And that's when the first Japanese imports started coming through and everything.
They were myopic.
Yes.
Right.
It's that you raise a very interesting point, is that when things are going really, 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 really fine is when the state, the entity, the corporation, the family, the individual doesn't look around and go, what's going to go bad? You raise a very good point. And this always reminds me, when I have this discussion, is that, the motto for the state of Ohio should not be, we're mediocre and we're vaguely satisfied with that.
Yeah.
Which also says a lot about our grammar and ability to conjugate a sentence. It should not be the state motto. And I hear that, and as I go around the state, I hear this from, we're doing okay. You need to always blow the tops off. And that's what I'm hearing from you. And I'll be real honest with you. That is, in my opinion, unfortunately rare. Now, I'm going to get nasty emails from the OSBA now on this, Ohio School Board Association, and BASA Association of School Administrators. But in my opinion, I'm a former school board member. I know how you guys all think, and you are absolutely an educational entrepreneur, and I'm so glad that it was recommended that we come in and talk to you today. This has been wonderful.
Thank you.
And I don't know quite the impact this is going to have. This is going to have some impact. And I look forward to seeing how all this plays out further and further and further. So thank you very much.
Well, my pleasure. Thank you for coming.
All right. Well, this has been Gene Krebs on behalf of the Center for Community Solutions. Been doing a series of these shows, and tune in next week, and I have no idea what's going to happen then. For more about the Center for Community Solutions or their publications, please visit www.communitysolutions.com.